Minutes have equal present and absent, so it was 9 years.
Okay, well, we'll fix that. You can't do, yeah. All right. With that change, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Same with Mark. Mark's listed twice as well.
All right, make those changes.
Those changes, I move to approve.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? New business, reports from me. I don't have any actual business. I do want to thank Michael for chairing the last meeting. Michael told me yesterday he'd be a few minutes late. I was at the annual police dog body, and my firm always thinks it's important to support the local law enforcement folks. So I appreciate Michael stepping in for me. And that brings us down to the financial summary. These are all relatively routine requests and transfers and fairly small amounts. So I'm going to have Michelle go through them. Then we'll see if there's any questions or any discussion. You can vote on them. One vote. Turn it over to you.
Okay. So we're at the time of the year where we're starting to try to move grant money around to make sure that we spend it all before the end of the year. So that's how a lot of these transfers reflect. Some of them are for, excuse me, some of them are for transferring funding for staff so that we make sure we have enough to pay through the end of the year. I think I've talked about this before, but we've had a lot of building repair needs this year with the HVAC system and some other things. So one of them reflects money we need to move for repairs of our walk-in freezer and kitchen. Some of them are more operating expenses. One of them is we had, with our move to the new location at Change, we did have to have a tag reader put into the door so the staff can access the door, and it works with the current security system they have at the location. And so one is to get that repaired, that school started, and that mostly covers it. Does anybody have any specific questions about any of the transfers?
Anybody have any questions or comments about any of the transfers? Then I would ask if we could have a motion to approve the transfers that are listed A through H.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Change Academy update?
Oh, yeah, for those that weren't aware, we are in a new location now. We're located in the Choice building over at the Kroger Plaza. So kind of getting settled into our new place. We currently have 6 participants on the program, 4 DeKalb Central High School students, 1 middle school with 2 waiting intake. We have 1 DeKalb Eastern that's awaiting intake, and 1 Garrett Middle School with 1 intake on the way. In terms of programming, we're going to be introducing our Botman transitions program here, life skills training, or life skills classes with our students here in the next couple of weeks. We're also planning on hosting junior achievement and Children's First Center. In terms of staff training, we've kind of delved into several different types of training, ranging from teen suicide awareness and safety related, and stress reduction type of skills that we can teach our students. And we're planning on doing some conferences, going to some conferences here in October, delving into education and mental health kind of related type things.
All right. The second thing on there about the juvenile program is to get approval for the juvenile alternative detention policy. It's basically the home detention policy, what they call it EMHD. It's about 3/4 the way back to your package is the actual written policy. Then Charlie, tell us about what that's planned to be, and then Grandma, I'd like to hear input on it. Your input on the juvenile and trying to monitor and home detention problem.
My input.
Yeah, the good or bad?
I get it.
I have been constantly raising the conversation as it develops. Okay. And, first of all, if you just want the full answer, I believe it's appropriate, you should do it, okay? On the other hand, maybe a little bit of an understanding of the issues that we have. There are very, very few juvenile detention facilities available for us to utilize. And it's even different than what people think, because they may have beds available at ACJC. They have staff to bed ratio, and they have a lot of turnover. They don't have enough people, and so there may be a vacant bed that they still cannot take the youth. The sheriff has been stuck driving people all the way down to Johnson County, even farther than that, several hours, upon immediate detention. The thing that gets really bad is the deputy then comes back and I have to hold a hearing within 48 hours on that detention. So they're going back and they're bringing them back up here. And if I don't think it's safe to allow the juvenile to be out in the community, they're going back again. It is a huge burden on the sheriff's office. In other words, it takes a lot of transport resources. And I believe that it was a considered opinion of Michael Bowden Weinhall and my two juvenile probation officers, Kelly Madison, Kelly Heath, that there were a lot of situations where if we were to use the electronically monitored home detention and for lack of a better term, the fences that it provides, in other words, a certain layer of additional to releasing, it would be adequate in quite a few of the situations that take the burden off free up the resources. And then the other thing, it really is never forget that it's dollars expensive to have kids in juvenile detention. So it's just an additional tool in the toolbox. Our juvenile probation officers, I think everybody knows it, are really, really experienced, really, really good. And so you can trust their judgment on these things. I feel that I can. That's my thoughts on it, Kevin. I really view it as, and one more thing, community corrections, quite frankly, we all know they do a fantastic job. They do a fantastic job. So it's just another tool in the toolbox, and why not?
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you. Michelle, you got anything you want to add to that, Dave?
The only thing I would add, that was obviously a brief description. If anyone has questions, we're willing to answer them. The policy is just here for approval. Because obviously, this board's responsibility is coordinating justice programs in the county, and this would be a new form of program, as we're doing this kind of as a hearing matter. And so our policy that we have here for everyone's review is just kind of reflecting where the referrals are going to come from, how the intake process would be done, and our responsibilities at community corrections within that process. And then noting that the detention hearing would then be held for the juvenile relations policies.
I do have one additional thing I wanted to add, because some people think like I do. It is a restriction of liberty, no question about it. If they do that, it does trigger the same requirement in front of the judge within 48 hours to make a determination. So it's not like we're the trial down on electronic monitoring based on the juvenile officer's decision, and then at the end of it, potentially for a long period of time, I have to hold the same 48-hour hearing because that is a restriction of liberty. So we'll have to visualize ourselves.
Just to make sure that I understand, but I believe that it's the case that electronically monitored home detention is already available as an option once they get to court. But this is only dealing with the small window between the time that they're initially detained and the 1 to 4 days, depending on weekends they
Yes,
would.
and I was not sure, okay? Absolutely, community corrections has made available to me the ability to have electronically monitored detention as part of what we call my dispositional orders, sentencing, if you will. They've always done that. I've had that option. I don't know if it also is an enhancement or a more blanket coverage of that part of it, or if it is just a very early on detention stage.
Yeah, this policy and the things we're talking about today are only for that detention stage.
Okay, and that's why my comments were focused on the detention and the reasons for issues involved with secure detention right now due to lack of resources.
Any other discussion? Anybody have any questions about the policy? Well, I'd like to offer a vote on approval of the juvenile alternative to detention policy. I guess we get a motion first, it passes.
I'll make a motion to approve policy number 7-012-001.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's passed. Budget discussion.
Yeah, so just wanted to give everyone an update. Obviously, we know that the funding for the corrections programs across the state was reduced this year, and our reduction came out to just around 9% of our grant funding, compared to last year. So we did have to send in amended budgets by September 1st. We did that kind of with some of the areas a little bit wide open. Because we did go back to county council and ask for some additional funding from county general. They're going to make those final decisions later this month. So depending on those decisions, we may have to rework the budget again. And if that's the case, then what we do is just wait for the next calendar year. And in that calendar year, we send some transfers and kind of some more amendments to the budget down to the Department of Corrections. And then we just go from there. So just kind of waiting again to see exactly how everything's going to fall out for the next year. There's already been changes that we'll have to make. I think a lot of people are probably aware that the county commissioners determined that the county will consider election-based holidays now. With how our budget works, that requires us to come up with additional holiday funding for some of our staff. And yesterday our financial manager was working on that, and the 2 additional holidays are going to be about $5,500 for us. So that's something that will also have to be figured into amendments of the budget for election years. Any questions on the budget?
Can I add something though?
Yeah.
Because my brain was low as when I first got the copy. I had a proxy delegation from Judge Jessup, who had been a murder trial unable to attend. He was very much in favor of the things we talked about, electronic monitoring, home detention, and he authorized me to vote all that stuff. He wanted records to show that all 3 judges favored the man. I don't think it matters. I mean, it was carried. I just don't know what you put in the record. I don't know if you identify who said what, but he wanted.
It was unanimous. It continues to be unanimous. Actually,
Yeah.
The next matter is a discussion regarding mandatory community service work for all participants. I wasn't here at the last meeting. It seems like that was a matter of lively discussion. So, Michelle, what are we doing about that?
So at the last meeting, I know a lot of people weren't here. I think a lot were attending. One of the things we talked about was my request and community corrections request in general to change the requirement in our participation agreement for mandatory community service for all participants. As it stands now, all participants are expected to do 3.5 hours of community service work, and they're given the deadline and they're explained how to complete that. What we have found, however, is that we don't have the resources, like the staff time or the ability to supervise that the way that it probably needs to be supervised. And so in some cases, what it leads to is actually a number of issues and problems for behavior of participants out of the sites. Instead of working, sometimes they're having family come visit them, they're spending time in their car with their significant other instead of working, they're vaping when they've been told they can't, they're vaping right next to a no vaping sign. They are pretending to work and not working, just a number of things, to the point where our discussions have become, because we don't have the ability to supervise it the way that we probably need to make it effective, are we in fact increasing their criminal thinking and their manipulation activities? And also, maybe more importantly, putting the stress of trying to supervise that on the worksite supervisors who are oftentimes very kind and generous people running not-for-profits who don't like to confront people when they're not doing what they're supposed to and don't necessarily probably have the time to be dealing with some of the issues that we've been having. So our request has been that, not that we completely remove the community service program, but just that we use it only in specific occasions, like for those who are unemployed, they can do community service until they become employed. For those that the court specifically orders to community service, and for those that we would like to use community service as a sanction. The idea of that being with a much smaller population of people completing the community service, we would have a much, we ourselves would be in a much better position to supervise that and ask questions, check up on how they're doing as far as verification, and maybe direct them to specific sites and things like that. Judge Rim had asked that we kind of table it until this meeting and have additional conversations about other resources in the community. Is there anybody else able to do that? I know I spoke with Sheriff about his ability to run maybe like a work crew or something. Doesn't have the resources at this time to do anything like that. I also held a meeting with the staff at the United Way to see if they had, obviously they're already doing community projects throughout the year. So kind of asking if they had the ability to work with us there. When I sat down and talked with them, they're definitely interested in partnering with us and giving us ideas of projects, but not on an ongoing basis. So the week I went to meet with them, I ran some quick numbers just so I could give them an idea of kind of what our current requirement is and what we would be asking. And that week, what we had was our people that were assigned to community service would have needed 119 hours of community service that week. And they said that's beyond their abilities. So they also said they're not necessarily working on a project every week or every day. And so what they're looking at more is kind of contacting us when they have a special project come up or something in the community they know is happening. Their example that they gave, the next one, was helping to set up like the Halloween walk in the park. If people could help set that up, but obviously that hasn't started yet. So what we're looking at more, I think, is kind of spread out through the year if they have some projects that they could request some of our services on. And so that's definitely something we could look into in the future, but I don't think it solved our general ongoing need for more supervised hours. So our request is to change the participation agreement, just to say that community service is possible in situations where folks are not working or where they have been given a sanction to complete hours.
Okay. Any questions? Any discussion about that?
Yeah. Boil that down for me. What is it you want to change? What are you doing now? What do you want to be different?
So now we have the requirement in our participation agreement that every post-sentence adult that we have on services, other than just in a class, but on electronic monitoring services, has to complete a certain number of hours a week. What we would like to do is remove that from the agreement and have it state that community service can be required during periods of unemployment or during periods where you've been specifically sanctioned to complete community service.
How about also where a judge specifically ordered somebody to do community service?
And some, everybody's met me. I think they ought to do community service if they're out there, all right, across the board. But I'm also a reasonable practical guy, and I heard you that we do not have the resources, we do not have the manpower, we do not have the ability to effectively accomplish that right now, right?
Correct.
So if we were to make the reduction in the requirement, to aggressively pursue the resources to restore it? Or you just say, hey, we can't do it, we don't have the stuff, so they can hang out all weekend, not contribute anything back to society.
I think the recognition has to be that to effectively run the program, we would have to have a dedicated staff person going out and remaining on site with the participants in order to supervise that.
Well,
In the very near future of our budget, I do not see that as a possibility.
Okay.
Can't say
And that goes back to,
I.
that goes back to what you said. We do not have the money, we do not have the resources, we cannot effectively. So, if they gave you the money, you could, right?
Yes.
I guess that's what they do. Thank you.
Any other discussion, comments, program? So I guess we're looking for a motion to modify the current requirement that everybody do community service to just be that community service would be mandatory for those people serving their sentence out here that aren't working, or a sanction if they cause problems when they're out here, or if it's been specifically ordered by the judge when they get sentenced.
Oddly enough, despite what I said, I will make that motion, only because, I mean, I clearly believe, I think everybody should be doing it, but I also understand that you don't have the resources, you don't have the ability to effectively do it. It's an unreasonable requirement on your end. So I move that we do it, the caveat that we should continue to see whether or not we can develop a program that we all encompass. So I so move.
And second. Second, all right. All in favor?
I
Any opposed? All right. Well, defensive tax,
Yes.
what do we need for that?
This one I was presenting for a vote because, in the purposes of the Community Corrections Advisory Board, part of it is, to regulate personnel procedure. And this is, kind of a big change for us. We have done defensive tactics training for our staff in the past, but that's been provided by, like a law enforcement partner. We had the ability, to send 2 staff members to a week-long defensive tactics training at the Department of Correction this year, for free, and as long as there were spots available after they took their own staff, and there were. So we had that ability, to send them down, have them be certified. They came back and we did our first session. We wanted to see how it went, and we all think it went well. We actually had the participants fill out a survey at the end, giving some feedback, and the feedback on the surveys was good. A couple ideas, a couple of things they'd like to see more of, and so that's going to be helpful in the future. And so having done that, what we want to do is make that requirement for staff at the in the department, not only the residential staff, but we're also having our case management staff go through it, and we're also having our front office staff go through a very shortened version. They do part of the training and then they go ahead and go back to their regular duties while the rest of the staff carry on with some, I guess, more intensive training. And so we decided what we needed was a policy basically outlining the requirement for attending the training who is required, and that our staff, our in-house staff, will be certified and will do the recertification as required. And so this is just presented to get everyone's approval to add this to our policy manual.
And so that's 2 pages in your packet there. Lays out, and basically what kind of training everybody has to have each year.
Yeah, what kind of training and the certification for the instructors, the topics that will be covered, and reminder to look back at other parts of policy that are already enforced, like reduce of force policy and our use of our confinement room in residential. And the defensive tactics trainers do have to get recertified every 2 years.
And do we actually have, unfortunately, do we have that come up very much out here? Someone has to be trained.
We do not fortunately have that. We've had one instance this year where there was a little bit of an incident with 2 angry residents were having issues with each other, and when staff attempted to intervene, one staff member needed shoved.
It does happen, just not on the day.
It sounds like a good policy. Any discussion, any comment? Well, we just need a motion to approve that, the last 2 pages, the manual of policies and procedures. And it's the last 2 pages in your packet there. It's identified just as the number in the upper right-hand corner, 302001. Motion to approve that? If they package training.
So move.
Second, please.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Moving off quickly here. Any other update, Michelle?
Yeah, just a quick update that our staff continue to work on the goals we made, program with the University of Cincinnati. We are piloting a motivation assessment to use with participants. We have not found that to be helpful. And I do have to do follow-up calls with Department of Corrections to let them know how our goals are going. I let them know that that has not been helpful and that we probably were going to discontinue it. And interestingly enough, the staff member on there said, yeah, I don't like that one either. Then why did you tell us to do it? Mysteries that will never be solved. So, but the other ones, transition plan we're using with participants exiting the program, and then doing CQI with our treatment providers. We have started doing our participant surveys as far as when they exit treatment, how they felt like that went, and we're going to share those results with the treatment providers, and then we are going to be having community corrections staff members go in and sit in on groups occasionally, as little as we possibly can, because we obviously know that if we do that, any of the participants that recognize us are going to be more likely to share and participate as we would hope they would. So those are things that we have been asked to do by Department of Corrections, University of Cincinnati, and we are moving forward with all of those goals. The next one on there, I just wanted to bring it up as a topic of conversation. With the budget cuts throughout the state for community corrections, there have been programs that have had a harder time absorbing those cuts and are looking at either cutting staff members or closing programs or changing some of the services that they offer. And some very preliminary talk has happened about if programs have to close, would we be able to take referrals from outside of the county into our program, specifically into the residential program. So some of the preliminary conversations we have have basically been about if we were to consider that and take referrals from outside of county, how would that look? So how would the screening process look? Would we be able to have an agreement with an understanding that if our screening board looks at something and says we're not willing to take that person, that the courts in the other counties understand that that is a final decision and that they wouldn't be able to send them to us over that recommendation. My concern also has been removal process. If we're to have a person in our program that we were having a problem with, what would it take to remove that person and have them returned to their county of origin, and how quickly would that happen? And then obviously the idea of bed usage. So we know so far, the facility, I would assume it was built for growth because that's the appropriate way to plan and build something. And so we haven't needed to use all the beds we have in residential. But if we were to begin taking any kind of referrals from outside the county, what we do to ensure that we have dedication of beds for our own cases, what we have a reserve that we hold open. One county that has talked about possibly having to close and asking Center Girl Sense and asked about, whether they would have a certain number that they could expect to be held, as in how they used to do benefits at ACJC, so they pay a certain fee to have a certain number held. I was not going in that direction if I thought it was a possibility, because I'd rather just know that we have a certain number that we keep for our own resources. And if the others are filled, that they're filled, and then we turn away anybody from another county. So these are just kind of all of the things considering, is there a way for us to, obviously we have the facility and obviously we have the bed space, and the user fees are a way that we do fund the program. And so if we're looking at future budget cuts from the state, is this a possibility in a way for us to continue running efficiently and effectively, and also, with the idea in mind that we all know that our participants don't only stay in our county, and the participants from other counties don't only stay in their county. They all cross the county line, and they all live their life in different areas, different cities. They don't necessarily care where that county line is. So if we're looking at more of a community issue, we could look at that too. So no formal requests this time, nothing like that, but it is something that across the state, community corrections programs have begun speaking to each other about, just in the thoughts that we have been told there might possibly be more budget cuts in the grant funding in next year, on top of what we've already received for 2026. So that would be for 27. And if that happens, I believe some places are thinking that they may not be able to continue operating as they are.
Right.
If I could add something, I know I apologize for my late arrival due to a personal issue. Maybe it's more well-rounded. What you heard was the state cutting budget. That we were one of the lucky ones in all of that, mostly due to the leadership here in this building. Some of the things that you've seen here today, the juvenile EMHD program request, the ability for direct phone training for defensive tactics. Those are the tools that are affecting everybody in this room. We say the schools here, our EMHD ability to help treat children right here inside our community. Myself and the juvenile department saw a per diem for a treatment placement for a juvenile this week go to $1,300 a day. That's not even intentionally, that's treatment placement. So we have to be nimble. This program is the effectiveness of this program to makes the entire county nimble, and my department able to meet the demand as quickly as I can. The defensive tactics, every one of my officers, but a few, also went through that defensive tactics program, because we're more prepared for the search requirements that are coming through our treatment course. We had a treatment court evaluation this week, and all the extended programming that's provided out here by one of the officers, MRT, Seeking Safety, and some of the others, were immediately given positive feedback from those evaluators, because they're immediately able to get at it. They have that, plus they're able to meet the court expectations of coming right back and speaking to the court about that defendant's progress. So in that, though you hear budget cuts, I just wanted to make it clear first that we're lucky to have Michelle and her team over here doing what they do, because the state sees that and didn't reduce our budget as much as everybody else. But as we move forward, should they continue to do that, it won't be in our control. So we would continue to ask that you support us as much as humanly possible as we go around the council of commissioners. You see how this program works and how much we go in there. Well, we got a lot of positives when we went for budget hearings this week or this year as well. But all the support helps, all the positive message helps. So thank you.
I think it's really important for all of us to see the fact that we're seeing a couple of things sort of converge right now. One is we've got massive cuts across the state from the Department of Corrections. which affected us less than it has affected other places. Largely, I think, because of the health of our programming here, because of how solid all of our work here is. Then we have these cuts hit other places more. And now the other places are looking at us and wanting to collaborate with us. Again, because our programming and our overall situation is so healthy, all of this is a massive compliment to what we're doing. What's being explored with other counties has the potential, I think, to be a win-win for all parties involved. And it's just really healthy. And I think it's important for all of us to see how good the work is that's being done here. And this is evidence of it.
And I agree. If you look at the evaluations, the community corrections program and the evaluation of our 3 problem solving forces, they are almost universally like this. In other words, they really are performing at the highest level through a lot of dedication of a lot of hard work people. And everything that Judge Fuller said is right about the economics and the outward looking in here now about the effectiveness of our program and wanting to utilize our resources. So what we really have, we have a situation where, from my opinion, we must serve our community first. Okay, always. But we really live in an economic time. We can't ignore potential revenue streams from other counties. And so the trick is to always serve our people, never impact that, but access those additional revenue streams if we can. A couple of the issues that you brought up, your concerns about what happens, people out of county and stuff like that. I think that the 3 Judge Jessup, myself, and Judge Swiller do have some ideas and can assist in some of the issues you identified. I have some kind of solidified thoughts on some of that because I've been aware of it for some time. You kept me in the loop. I would need to consult with Sheriff Thomas to understand some things from the sheriff's perspective in order to see if some of my thoughts are viable, but I'm pretty sure he's still talking to me, so I will let that out.
Any other comments? Mike, now that you're here, take over your game part. Anything else you want to say?
I apologize.
Anything else would you like to say about any other matters?
No, just I had promised law enforcement, juvenile EMHD, home detention program for on-call for a while. It's something that I had developed, and just to make everyone clear, I had actually gotten a lot of help with that, not only from Michelle as we designed it because it needs to go through here, but from a chief in a neighboring county who has specific history of juvenile. The hard part being, yeah, it looks like an amazing idea, but with juveniles, you can't make some of those quick corrections to a community without really understanding what the long-term impact would be. So I got a little ahead of myself believing, yeah, it's a great idea, we're going to do that. And then I saw what I thought were some possible impacts outside in another county, which were concerning for me. So it took an extended period of time, more contact with that chief to talk about how it's impacted their county before we started moving forward. And then it was about policy and procedure. Myself and Ms. Mattis can tell you before she was required to go to a meeting, we were ready to move almost immediately, and then through review of statute noticed that we had to get board approval before we move forward with that in our county. Not sure how much we talked about that, but for us, a lot of the policies in my department will not move. If it gives us another tool, there are certain things that we do inside my department that I'm staunch on for this community. And that would look at all my officers who are on call and say that this is how it works for DeKalb, in my opinion. But this new tool will give us the ability to have some middle ground to do other things and be immediately responsive to some issues here in the county, which right now, we've had a gap. It's, release or detain, and right now we'll have some It does, put some extensive requirements on the juvenile court, my juvenile officer, because any of these now also require any, orders that I put out, or requirements that I put out through statute require that we have a detention hearing, no different than if I put them in the handcuffs and place them in the. So we'll put some more burden on the court and the juvenile probation department to get those reports already. But they've already given me the go ahead, and understand that it is what's best, to have more tools in the box for our community.
Broad shouldered, Michael. We can do it.
Do the board members have any other business, any other matters they want to bring up? Not seeing any other business. Our next meeting is December 5th, 2025 at 7:30 a.m. And we'll be there to meet.